this. For the last 3 years, my Wednesday night, I've been with that man, Dave Fisher. Okay. Dave Fisher grew up in Manhattan, graduated from Manhattan High School and K-State with a BS degree in pre-law. Upon graduation, he was commissioned as an officer in the U.S. Army, where he served 30 years, retiring as a full colonel. I didn't know that. Dave worked at the Kansas Farm Bureau and affiliated companies for 37 years, retiring as Vice President of Sales Manager and Vice President of General Manager of the Farm Bureau Services Agency. An active community leader, Dave was a city commissioner for 8 years, serving twice as mayor. He served 8 years at Manhattan School Board, was a past chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, past commander of the Manhattan American Legion, and currently is serving as president of the Friends of the Peace Memorial Auditorium. Dave was a longtime member of the Manhattan Rotary Club, is a Paul Harris Fellow, and a past secretary of the club. So, now, I'm going to take a couple of minutes of everyone's time because I wanted to share why I have been involved. How many of you grew up in Manhattan, Kansas? Okay. How many of you went to Teen Town? All right. Teen Town was down at the Peace Memorial Auditorium, and every semester they would come out and they would say this was a living memorial, and they would talk about the 101 and how important it was and that we remember that. Well, I went home and I said, what is a living memorial? And for about the next month, our evening meal, my parents talked about the classmates that didn't come back, the classmates that came back but would never be the same. And then when we first moved to Manhattan, we lived at Hilltop Court, which is right across from Ahern. And we had neighbors. One didn't have much of a hand. A couple of them limped quite a bit. And so my parents talked quite a bit about these people, what they had done, how we should remember them. And so I just kind of figured that that was going on for everybody in Manhattan, Kansas. Well, a big surprise came. They were going to take out the auditorium and they were going to put in the Parks and Rec. And a couple of us showed up, Karen may remember, and said we didn't want to do that. So for the last 3 years, I've had the honor of meeting with the Friends of the Peace Memorial Auditorium, and a few things have gotten changed around, and I want Dave to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Stormy, and past President Betty. Is that accurate and correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for being here today, and fellow. I would say fellow Rotarians, but I'm not a Rotarian any longer. I spent over 40 years as a Rotarian, so I'm sure you're thinking, well, why in the hell aren't you in here anymore? It's a great club. My dad was a longtime Rotarian and a longtime secretary of the club, and as I look around this room, I see a lot of you that I've known for many, many years through your businesses and through Rotary. So I apologize that I'm no longer a Rotarian. I have really no great apology for that, other than I have a lot going on with my family. I got right now I have 7 grandkids going to K-State, and that keeps us pretty busy. Well, what I'm here to talk to you about briefly today is an important thing that's happening in our community called Peace Memorial Auditorium. This is a project that the community is working on, and when I say community, I'm talking about the total community of Manhattan and Riley County. I'm talking about the commissions, about the county commission, the city commission, the citizens all across Manhattan and Riley County. Just briefly, I'd like to read you the mission statement. And if you want to look at these folders, that has information on there also if you'd like to follow along. I put 3 of those on each table, so if you're interested, you can glance at them. The mission statement of the Friends of Peace Memorial Auditorium is to help raise funds to renovate Peace Memorial Auditorium so the memorial may continue to honor the 101 Riley County World War II veterans and county's veterans of previous wars who paid the ultimate sacrifice and to serve the community's many needs, including the arts, athletics, and civic events into the future. Our honorary chairs are Bert Beyer, a World War II veteran, Jim Sharp, a World War II veteran, and a survivor of the Battle of the Bulge, and also was a sergeant of the guard at the Nuremberg trials. And another fellow you probably all know pretty well was not a World War II veteran, but he sure is a big supporter of ours as an honorary chair, and is really excited about what we can do at Peace Memorial Auditorium, is Frank Trace, director of the Kansas State University Bands. So those are our honorary chairs. I will just say, so I don't forget while I'm up here, that we do work with the Greater Manhattan Community Foundation, and Bert Hendricks here has been very kind to try to help us out as he can and give us some guidance on our fundraisers and what we're doing and our donations. So we are affiliated with them, and so I want everybody to be able to understand that we're pretty solid there. Our group, let me tell you just a couple things to start with. First of all, about our group, we decided that if we were going to be organized, and Stormy did a good kind of introduction here of what the Friends of Peace Memorial Auditorium are, really started out as a group of people interested, people from the veterans organizations, people from the arts and humanities, people from the Preservation Alliance, Manhattan Preservation Alliance, the Riley County Historical Society, and a lot of individuals and business people in town. And it was an informal group, and as Stormy indicated, originally the city commission at the time was looking for a place to place the Manhattan Recreation Department. And the staff, city staff, and the commissioners had kind of settled in looking toward tearing down Peace Memorial Auditorium, and in doing that, and then move the Recreation Commission in back there, and a couple of practice basketball courts in. Well, that's when this informal group kind of got together. And so they went to the city commission, and after a lot of discussion and all, on a 3-2 vote, the city commission decided to keep Peace Memorial Auditorium, and it's worked out, I think, very well. The Recreation Commission has now been able to move to the front side, Points Avenue of the City Hall, and as part of that upgrade, they also found the commission voted to finally air condition Peace Memorial Auditorium. Now, that was a big plus for us to get that air conditioning in there, and it certainly moved us in the right direction. So I want to take you though back to World War II. I mentioned a couple World War II veterans. We just lost Cecil Eystone, who some of you know. We lost several of our veterans, and some of them are getting older. They're up in their 90s pretty much now. These are take you back to World War II, because in Manhattan, what do you think the population of Manhattan might have been in the years of the 1940s during the war and thereafter in the 40s?
10, 15.
Yeah, usually when I talk to people, some people say, well, 12 to 15,000. 2,610 veterans from Manhattan and Riley County served in World War II. That's a pretty good percentage of the local population. Those are a big war, and they provided great service for us. And what they decided, well, these guys that went over there, these guys and gals, because there were women involved also in that 2,610, 83 of them were wounded, Purple Heart winners, and 101 of them never came back. So the city was pretty much strongly wanting to do something to recognize these folks. So they passed a bond issue. The American Legion took the lead on this. A lot of civic groups were involved. I could look around the room and tell you that some of the parents and grandparents were involved. We'd go back and check all the newspaper articles. People were real excited about this. Where were they going to put this memorial? What kind of memorial was it? They finally, after a lot of discussion, they passed a bond issue. They decided not to make it a memorial that you'd stick up in City Park, but to make it a living memorial, an auditorium. And they decided to place it next to by the City Hall. So that's why it was put there. Now, we just this year in September celebrated our 61st anniversary of Peace Memorial Auditorium. So what we're trying to do now is work with the City Commission, because they have unanimously told us to proceed, and we're trying to work with them, and we've got support from them. We've got support from the Riley County Commission in our project, and we're moving forward with Bruce McMillan and Associates Architects, and we're designing a veterans wall. And on there, we'll have 101 veterans who are involved, and then we will also have a Purple Heart inlaid. We'll have a Gold Star for the mothers of deceased veterans. We'll have a statue of a boot and a rifle and a helmet, and it's going to be a wonderful thing done on that wall. In addition to that, we'll be fixing up the auditorium side, which, as you all know, anybody that does anything about electronics and all, in 60 years, it needs some upgrades. And, you know, people today want to perform on there and all, but they want to come in, they want to hook into what's available. And so that's what we're trying to do, is work on the electrical upgrade, working on the lighting, bringing the lighting up, the sound systems, everything, the new, fixing the chairs. We're working with the city. The city's going to help us with providing some of the upgrades in the auditorium and with the curtains and the stage, redoing the stage, and just a lot of different projects that are going to make this thing, you know, be much, much better. We hope that it'll last for another 50 to 60 years. We think it's a great multi-use facility. It's not, we're not trying to be McCain Auditorium. We're not trying to compete with the Manhattan Arts Council. In fact, they'd like to use the stage to practice on. There's a lot of people that are saying that, you know, if you ever saw that movie about baseball, and they said, if you build it, they will come. Well, if you air condition it, and fix the lights, and you put in the electric stuff, and fix all the tables and chairs and the seats, believe me, they're going to come. And we're already getting all kinds of interest in that project. So it is a community-wide project, and I'd like to just let you know briefly where we are on our fundraising. Like I said before, we've had donations from the county commission. We've had donations and support from the city commissioners. We've had individual donations from those folks, as well as from the two commissions. So, what about people in the community? How do we participate? We started in January, and we sent out requests. In fact, we mailed out to a whole lot of people around town. If you didn't get one, I apologize. But we tried to find a lot of people we could mail these out that we thought might be interested, either through their business or through their individual help as a community leader, or in some way got on the list of that first mailing. And we have received hundreds of individual donations, anywhere from $5 up to a maximum. We had one donation from a lady that had a husband and 3 brothers that served in World War II here locally, and she gave a check for $10,000. So those were the individual donations, and we continue to try to solicit individual donations. So if any of you have missed and want to be a part of this community project, we'd be more than happy to have you on our list as a supporter. There is in the brochure, the brochure kind of tells you about everything. There is a place in here where you can sign and send in an envelope to Peace Memorial Auditorium, and if you want a tax deduction, you go make it out to the Greater Manhattan Community Foundation. So we have started that on January 1st, and we have on cash and pledges and working with the city. We're a little over $360,000 now towards our goal of $500,000. Now that might sound like, well, it's a lot of money you've raised. Well, it is, because I look out over this room, and I would not embarrass anybody or any way today, but I want to thank those of you who I have already sent in, either through your business or through your individual donation. It's hard for us always. We send a letter out of thank you. I always like thank you whenever I run into somebody I know has been on our donation list. So for those of you who donated, thank you very much. We appreciate that. And again, anybody that's interested, we would accept individual donations. We are still currently heavily involved in trying to get around to the community to the banks. We've been to a lot of the banks. We've been to a lot of the businesses. We're doing everything we can to try to tell our story as it would be. So I guess I'm pretty early here. I could talk longer and bore you, but I guess what I'd like to do probably is open it up for any questions you might have as to why we're doing it, or if I need to cover more information. I'd be glad to try to answer anything. Yes, sir.
What's the time frame on some of these projects for lighting, sound, stage, the wall that you talked about?
Thank you. The Veterans Wall is about a $132,000 project, and that wall is currently, we just met last night with the Veterans Committee of the Peace Memorial Auditorium Group, and when we did that, we're now into the final design, and as soon as that design is finalized, which it should be in a week or so, then it'll go back to the City Commission for their approval. And if they give the final approval on it, then we'll go ahead and let the bid. So for that part of it, it's going to come pretty quick. However, it takes time for all the bidding and getting the supplies and going through all the different steps that you have to do when you're doing a project with the city, and it has to be done correctly and carefully. So it will take some time. Right now, I think we're estimating that we'd like to get the construction started either by summer, first of summer, or sooner if possible. So that's kind of where we are on that part. As far as the part on the stage and auditorium technical committee, we're working with D.L. Adams out of Denver, Colorado, who's designing and giving us information on all those systems that I talked about, and they're in the process now. We've already paid for that jointly with the city, paid for half, and we paid for half. And we've moved forward on that, and any day now we're expecting to get the actual plans back from them for the outline of the design and the project and what the cost might be. We're thinking that it's going to probably be around $300,000 or so or more. It just depends. It's kind of a moving figure at all at times, but we set our goal as $500,000. And if we don't get quite to that, we'll have to figure out, set priorities, or we'll have alternates on the project as we phase it on. But we're definitely committed to keep working on this and doing this for the citizens of Manhattan and Raleigh County. Thank you for your question. Anybody else? I guess I don't hear any questions, so I just want to thank you for listening and appreciate your consideration. And if you know of anybody that we've missed that wants to participate, we'd be more than happy to contact any of us, and we'll get to you right away. So, having ended my talk, Betty, I want to thank you for allowing me to come, and I'm going to give you one of these.
All right.
Right here. Since you're, here's another one. I was a member of Rotary, as I told you, and I used to be one of the committees I was head of was the youth committee, the activities committee. I guess you still have that committee.
We do.
But the way I remember Rotary is if you want any kind of a donation to have a chance, it goes to somebody on the committee, and then it comes up through whatever percentage you have today. So,
or we just threaten them from here.
but if your service club would like to be listed and be a part of this and support us in any way, we'd be more than grateful.
We'll put it on next week's agenda.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. You're not